Plugs I Met To is a new EP by none other than Benny the Butcher and producer Harry Fraud, which is the official first project, I believe, from one of the Griselda boys. As this project specifically, in my opinion, things way more outside the box than what we are used to hearing from the underground and talented family record label. And while I'm at it, I guess I shouldn't be calling this the first project from the Griselda boys, because although Benny the Butcher is a part of Griselda, I do know that he does have his own little record label outside of Griselda called the Black Soprano family, I believe. And that's what this EP is a release under. It's technically not a Griselda uh, album, a released project. But it is under the Black Soprano family record label. When Benny first dropped the first installment to the Plugs I Met back in 2019, the world was finally introduced to an obviously very talented and impressive rapper, as Benny the Butcher was seen as a very incredible and just monstrous force to be reckoned with from the Griselda family. The Plugs I Met one was actually the first project I heard from Benny the Butcher. I know that he's had many other projects back in the past, but the first Plugs I Met installment was actually the first one that I've seen. Had many talents besides, West Side Gun and Common the Machine. I believe Pusha T was also on that album. It was really fucking dope. And then I heard more of Benny the Butcher in the WWC collab project that they dropped in 2019 as well, I believe. Benny just went hard on every fucking track. He obviously wanted to show his worth, and he just honestly has been really impressing me throughout these past, I want to say, 2 to 3 years. So it's obvious that Benny has proven to be such a great new rising artist, somebody that can kill it at the game with his lyrical shit, his storytelling, just the art that he brings to the culture in general. And he obviously wanted to make the sequel to probably his most highly acclaimed EP to be just as good as the first installment. And you all know how I feel about, sequels to already great albums. Sometimes they turn out not so great, and sometimes if it's done right by the right artist and the right producer, the album turns out great, if not better. And what better way to make the sequel great by collaborating with one of New York's most talented and underground, very underrated, talented producer, Harry Fraud. I'll be honest with you all, I've heard Benny team up with a lot of great producers during the past 2 to 3 years that I've been getting into him. Two of my favorite obviously were The Alchemist and Hit Boy. The Alchemist, I'm pretty sure, has a lot of production credit for the first the Plugs I Met EP, and Hit Boy produced the entire Burden of Proof album that came out last year. One of my favorite projects that came out last year. I really enjoy both of what Hit Boy and what The Alchemist have to offer to the table when it comes to the production value of every track or project that they do. But in my opinion, for me at least, I think Harry Fraud absolutely takes the win for me of some of the most creative and just really a memorable and beautiful production value that I've heard in a hip hop project in a very long time. Harry Fraud has a very unique and impressive twist when it comes to the boom bap style of rap, once again working with that golden era of hip-hop, as he pretty much uses his own jazz inspired sounds, which once again kind of reminds me of back in the day when artists and producers used actual instruments instead of technology to do the production work, to make the music sound a lot more very unique and original as well. And it just really worked out so well. It's very beautiful. Every track on here sounds very different. The production value just really keeps you going and wants to make you hear the rest of the album. However, besides Harry Fraud's impressive production work, I think Benny the Butcher is the other main reason why a lot of you would want to hear this album. And Most of it is because of his great storytelling. You know, I think Benny has the best storytelling out of West Side Gun and Conway. And although I want to say his lyricism as well, you know, I do think Benny's a really great lyricist. And, you know, even though his lyricism on here is as great, like always, I still think for me, his storytelling definitely, you know, takes the cake here. You know, it's definitely the reason why I enjoy this whole album. Benny takes us down memory lane throughout this whole album as he, you know, reminisces on the tough days before the fame, you know, all the friends he's seen die, you know, how he, you know, he talks a lot about, you know, how he went to jail and, you know, while he was in the cell, you know, he was thinking of a million ways to get rich and, you know, like, and to finally make it and to, you know, support his friends and family. You know, talking about, you know, like seeing a bunch of his friends die, and just always constantly saying in his head, you know, how that could have been him, and that's why he lives the life he lives now, and that's why he is so eager to accomplish so much right now, because, you know, his friends didn't make it, and he wasn't supposed to make it either, but he did. And, you know, now he is trying not to take that for granted, because has not, you know, it has not, you know, left his brain that, you know, he did get lucky and that he got fortunate enough to live a life that a lot of people that grew up in New York don't really get to live, unfortunately. And of course, like every Griselda a member, the guest list is always impressive. You know, there's always somebody new that they never work with, or they always have, like, you know, very iconic duos that they work with again because they know it's gonna sound good. And on here, the guest list is very impressive because I think it is the first time that Benny the Butcher does not include West Side Gun or Conway on this album, which I actually got very surprised to see. I feel like every time I listen to either a Benny the Butcher album or a Conway the Machine album or a West Side Gun album, I always tell myself, okay, get ready to hear Conway and Benny. Just get ready to hear all three of them in this album, because, you know, traditionally that's what they've done for a very long time now. Instead, Benny uses this album as a chance for him to not only promote the Black Soprano family record label and some of the few artists that showed up on this album from that record label, but to also team up with some of New York's most talented and most legendary MCs that have dominated the rap game for quite some time now. One of them is the classic boom bap rap style song entitled "Talking Back" with none other than Fat Joe himself. You know, this is a very, like, you know, a traditional, you know, like sort of 90s song that you would expect, you know, people like Dr. Dre or Tupac to, or even Ice Cube and Snoop Dogg to rap about, saying, you know, oh, like, you know, money be talking, so I be talking back, you know, hoes be talking, so I be talking back, you know, enemies be talking, so I be talking back, you know, just shit like that. And Fat Joe, you know, I personally felt that he wasn't gonna be able to hold his own, because I know that a lot of people say um, that there are certain artists that just shouldn't, like, you know, rap anymore at a certain age. You know, like, I know a lot of people have a preference of, like, you know, how old a certain rapper should be, you know, to the point where they should retire. And even though I personally don't believe in that, I do have my specific list of rappers that I feel should, like, stop rapping now. One of them is Fat Joe, and he honestly did impress me on here. You know, this track turned out to be one of my favorite tracks on here, and, you know, Fat Joe definitely held his own, especially with somebody as talented as Benny. Another great track on here is the very emotional death song entitled "Survivor's Remorse," which includes a feature with Hyde, who I believe is a part of the Black Soprano family record label. This is one of the songs that I was talking to y'all about, where Benny talks about, you know, just seeing a lot of his friends pass away, seeing a lot of his family pass away, you know, just constantly thinking of how that could have been them, you know, how, yeah, they survived, and, you know, they, like, thankfully, you know, made it to a much more better place in their lives where they don't really gotta worry about, you know, money, they don't gotta worry about, you know, just struggling anymore. But at the same time, you know, it's a very, like, sad and bittersweet feeling when, you know, you don't really have, you know, most of your friends or your family around to celebrate it with, and, you know, to share it with, because a lot of them had passed away, unfortunately. You know, it's a very, you know, emotional song that can really get to you, especially if you've lost a lot of people, and, you know, you're still going, trying to, just live for them, and to follow your dreams for them as well. The last track I want to talk about in this album is the track entitled Overall, which contains a very surprisingly posthumous feature with none other than Chinx. And some of y'all may have heard of him as Chinx Drugs. He was a rapper who passed away way too soon back in 2015. I believe he got shot. I actually I remember when that happened. I was kind of getting into his music. I was really fucking with like the old school, like very very like aggressive a grimy, like a New York style of rap that he did. And just one like a Saturday morning, I believe, or it was a Saturday afternoon, I believe, where I just heard all over the news that Chinx Drugs has been shot down and just died. I'm just like, God damn, like it was a very very like weird time. And he dropped his last posthumous project back in 2016, I believe. And so at that point, I think we all felt that there was no way that we were gonna hear anything new from him. And to our surprise, like there is this verse that somebody has been holding for a while, and Benny said, "Fuck it, let's work with it." And it turned out to be such a great like tag team, like lyrical, like death match. That is honestly my favorite track on the whole album, because I was definitely not expecting to hear Chinx on this album. Uh, if I could, compare this track to another track, it would be the "What Can We Do" track by Anderson .Paak, which features a posthumous verse with Nate Dogg. It showed up in the Ventura album back in 2019, I believe. And that was such a very emotional song, because after all these years, Nate Dogg's been dead since 2012, I believe, somewhere around there. And like you feel that there is definitely nothing left. And all of a sudden Anderson .Paak comes through with this unreleased verse that Nate Dogg created. And that's just like, it gives you a lot of emotions. And I think that's what this track with Benny and Chinx gave me, because me thinking that 2016 was going to be the last time we ever hear anything new from Chinx Drugs, and here he comes out of nowhere with a hopefully not final verse, but it sounds like a final verse. And honestly, I think Benny worked with it very very well, and I'm glad that they gave that verse to somebody who was going to use it well, and not just half-ass it to have a song. So yeah, I really really did enjoy that song. However, I'm not going to pretend that this whole project was great, because there were two tracks on here that I didn't like, and that really wasn't Benny's fault. Most of it was because he did team up with some very very underwhelming features. For example, 2 Chainz was on a track and I really didn't like it. I think the track was called Plug Walk, and French Montana showed up on a track as well. And in my opinion, I know a lot of people really do like 2 Chainz. I know a lot of people really love French Montana, although I never really heard much of him lately. But in my opinion, those two specifically don't really measure up or hold a candle to the great amount of talent that Benny has. And I personally feel that those songs would have been better, without them on. But that's just my opinion. I know a lot of people do like those two artists, but personally I feel that those two don't really work well with the kind of artist that Benny is. However, besides those two tracks that I didn't like, Benny the Butcher has definitely dropped his most personal and very very emotional project yet, as this project is once again another reflection of why a lot of people consider this to be what real hip-hop looks like. The reason why people will forever love hip-hop, and the reason why they say that hip-hop is alive and well, because there's people like Benny the Butcher that can make projects like these, where they not only can let the OG fans of hip-hop like still love what hip-hop is, and for modern hip-hop listeners to appreciate this style that once was really really famous back in the day, as they get their own little like modern twist to it. And because of that, I am going to give this album an 8 out of 10. Thank you all so much for watching it. We're going to enjoy my review. What did you guys think about this album? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Have you heard it? What are your favorite tracks? What are your least favorite tracks? Please let me know in the comment section down below. I would love to have a conversation about you guys about it. And with that being said, don't forget to like, subscribe, click that button down below, all that good stuff. And don't forget to stay happy.
It's like I'm living a dream, that's how to reach. I've been cooking like Walter and Jesse P. Kids exhausting, trying to be a prodigy. Past deep.